We're the travel agents coming to you with tips, tricks, interviews, and voyages by cruise. The travel agents bringing you the latest travel news.
Hey, I'm Will.
I'm Brian.
And we are the Travel Agents Podcast. Today we're going to talk about a story of mine, and it's about my experience in Puerto Rico. And more importantly, it's not about Puerto Rico. It's about a little bit of a natural disaster that occurred in 2017.
This is one of those stories where whenever you tell it, I want to listen so bad, but also I just feel guilty.
So for the longest time, Kristen and I thought we were like cursed, that we were just destined to, like, whenever we traveled, something bad would happen.
Right.
And this was like the starter that kicked that all off. And it wasn't until we traveled, you and I together in Israel, that we were like, oh, okay, we're not cursed. Yeah. Like, we were half expecting when we went to Israel that like the bus would break down or
we get bombed.
Something. Yeah, something would happen. And we were like, okay, I mean, it's because of us. It's because of us.
Yeah.
But to tell the story, Kristen and I, we were celebrating our 1-year anniversary, September 2017. And we decided that we wanted to go to a beach, but we didn't want to do Florida. And right. I've never been to Puerto Rico, and I think Kristen's been, like, briefly. So we were like, hey, let's go down to Puerto Rico and let's check it out. It seems really cool. There's so much to do. It's America, but it doesn't really feel like America because it's so Spanish.
Yes.
And so we book our flights and we go. And we thought we were going to be fine because we had heard about a hurricane had just passed through Puerto Rico, I think 2 weeks prior to us landing. And to put that in perspective, Puerto Rico had not been hit by a hurricane for like 30 years prior to the one that just hit. And we're like, okay, it's hurricane season and they're going through the Caribbean. It's a pretty bad hurricane season, but I think we're going to be okay. What are the odds of another hurricane coming in and hitting Puerto Rico?
Nothing.
Exactly. Yeah. So before we board, I'm checking the weather and everything, looking for hurricane reports. Nothing. All clear. Nothing in the Caribbean.
Okay.
Like, all right, sweet. Let's go and enjoy our trip. So we get on our flight. We get to Puerto Rico. We land. We get in our Airbnb. We're all checked up. And we decide to get we get dinner and check the weather forecast. Still okay.
Wow.
We're doing all right. We enjoy our first night there, and it was pretty cool. It was interesting to see Puerto Rico, but that first day we didn't really do too much. We just landed, we had dinner, and went to bed. So the next day we wake up. It's our first full day in Puerto Rico, and we have a pretty decent itinerary. Go to the beach, hang out, go get some lunch. The usually that you would do on your trip. And after that first day, that first full day. Before I go to bed, I check the weather forecast again, and would you know it, out of nowhere, this hurricane has popped up. It's Category 1 already. I'm like, okay, it's Category 1. We're probably okay. Yeah. But it's heading towards Puerto Rico.
Okay.
And I'm like, all right, I'm a little nervous, but I mean, it's just Cat 1. It shouldn't be too bad. And we go to bed, and I wake up, and it's a Category 3, and it's coming straight to San Juan.
Oh.
And I'm kind of starting to get a little bit stressed, but I'm so excited for the day that I have planned for us.
Oh.
And I'm like, all right, you know what? Let's start the day and let's just figure it out. We'll go from there.
And we know rain from up here in Ohio. We're used to it.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we've seen high winds before. I'll be honest, I've never dealt with a hurricane before, but I figured, worst comes to worst, we're in our big Airbnb our Airbnb is in this big apartment building, and there's really only one window. I figured we'd be pretty safe. The only downside was in the shower, there's no bathtub. It's just like a drain. And like what are those?
Are you supposed to get in the bathtub when there's a hurricane?
Yeah, and it will even more than that, but we'll get into that. So Kristen and I, we go and we have breakfast, and by the time we wake up, and by the time we're done with breakfast, that hurricane went from a Category 3 to a Category 4.
Well, how many categories are there?
There's 5. And I just got us tickets to the Bacardi rum distillery right outside of Old San Juan. And I was so excited to check this thing out.
Sure.
And we get our breakfast done. We eat that, and we're like, okay, it's Category 4. I should probably start looking into getting out of here. Just in case.
Not just like hanging at the Airbnb. Like, let's actually leave the island.
Well, I'm texting a few people. I'm texting my parents. I'm texting Kristen's parents. And I'm like,
don't text parents.
I know. Well, my idea was like, hey, we're having kind of spotty reception here. And everyone, for the most part, speaks Spanish. It's very hard to actually talk to someone that's speaking English outside of like a few high tourist areas. Everyone speaks Spanish in Puerto Rico.
And you couldn't channel your 2-year-old self that grew up in Spain?
No, I could not.
Okay,
no. Yeah, I could not. And Kristen's Spanish was a little hazy at this point too.
Okay.
So I'm texting my parents. I'm texting Kristen's parents. I'm like, hey, can you help us get a flight? Whether that's like calling JetBlue or whoever, like, can you help us out? I'm going to try and contact people. I'm in this Uber ride to our location. And I guess like the panic started to set in because as we're making our way to the Bacardi distillery, and yeah, we still have it on our itinerary. We haven't canceled anything yet.
Sure.
We're in the Lyft or Uber driver, and he's starting to say like, yeah, we're getting ready for the hurricane coming. Like my wife's going to the store and she's getting the supplies and stuff, and we pass Walmart, and the Walmart is so filled up that they're like basically like turning the highway into a parking lot. Like cars are just not moving at all on the highway because they're trying to get into the Walmart. Same thing goes for the gas station. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is very serious. We don't have any resources down here or anything like that. So, and we're on an island and can't drive anywhere.
Right.
We're stuck. So we get to the Bacardi exhibit, or Bacardi distillery, and very cool, super beautiful outside. Saw a cool iguana. It's probably like 6 feet long. I'm like, man, this is such a cool place. You see old San Juan. I'm like, I don't want to leave, but I'm like, I think we got to leave.
Is like the sky like turning red or something?
No. It's a beautiful Caribbean sunny day. And a little backstory, like I'm not like a travel agent at all at this point. Like I have no experience planning travel. Yeah. This was the first trip I had ever planned in my life.
Sure.
No experience whatsoever. So I'm getting a little antsy. And by the time we got to the Bacardi distillery, that hurricane turned into a Category 5. And they're saying it's one of the worst to come into the area, like in history or something like that. Okay. And I'm like, oh no, oh gosh. So we still went through the distillery.
Okay.
And it was great. Highly recommend. We were a little stressed out, but it was still good. So by the time we get out of the distillery, it's Category 5, and it's full on panic at this point. I'm like, okay, we need to either figure out a place we can stay for safety and shelter, plan to see how we can, be safe within our Airbnb, or most importantly, get the heck off the island and get into the United States. So we get into our Uber drive, our car for the Uber driver, and we're like, hey, we're from the States. Like, we've never been in a hurricane before. Like, do you have any tips? Like, anything we should be aware of? He says, oh, you guys are screwed. Like,
wow.
You guys need to fill up your bathtub with water. You need to put food in your dishwasher to keep it safe, and stockpile your refrigerator. And you need to stay away from windows. So the problem with that is our bathtub, we don't have one. We just don't have one. So even if we, tried to fill something up with water, we don't have anything to fill water in. So we would have no water. And the only shelter we would go to is this high school that was kind of down the street, and that thing was already packed up. I've never been in such high stress traffic. Wow. I mean, our Lyft driver, God bless him, is doing everything he can to get us to our Airbnb ASAP.
Wow.
I'm on the phone with JetBlue. I'm telling him the situation. I'm like, hey, like, can you help us get out of here? Like, can you get us a flight? Anything? I'll pay the money. It doesn't even have to be back into Ohio. Sure. Anywhere in the continental United States is fine.
Los Angeles, really?
Yeah, really. And they're like, we really don't have anything. You're going to have to get to the airport and try your luck.
Wow.
So we get to the Airbnb, and at this point, like, it's just bumper to bumper traffic, like literally everywhere. There's no point where you're not stuck in traffic for 10, 20, 30 minutes just to move a tenth of a mile.
Right.
It took us, I think the Bacardi distillery is like 1.5 miles away from our Airbnb. It took like an hour and a half to get to there. And we pack up all of our stuff. I felt really bad because we didn't clean the Airbnb. Messaged the host. I was like, hey, we're just getting out of here and trying to get to the airport. And our next driver, he's like, oh yeah, you guys are trying to get the last flight out of Puerto Rico. I don't think they have anything. I don't think you have anywhere to go, really.
Right.
And it's not adding to our stress levels at all. Starting to panic a little bit. And we get to the airport, finally. Took about an extra 2 hours to get there.
Oh,
again, maybe a 2 hour drive or 2 mile drive. And I go up to the JetBlue representative and I'm trying to talk to her, and she speaks probably 90% Spanish.
Yeah.
Very broken English. And she could not understand anything that I was trying to say. And I was like, please just try and get us like anywhere in the continental United States. It doesn't have to be back in Cleveland or back in Akron. And finally, after like probably 40 to 50 minutes of trying to converse with this lady, we finally got through like what we were trying to say. Like I can speak a few words in Spanish, but I'm not fluent by any means. Not anymore. And so we were finally able to get a ticket to, I believe it was Orlando, and then they'd give us a rental car and we'd have to drive to Fort Lauderdale, and then from there get on a flight back to Cleveland. And that's not ideal, but I mean,
could be
anything,
worse, I
yeah, it
guess.
could be obviously a lot worse.
Yeah.
So we get in line and we get our tickets and everything. And it turns out we were like one of like the last flights out of the airport before they closed it down entirely.
Yeah.
And that's not even the end of like the story. Like we get into Florida and we're still getting hit by a portion of the hurricane. Like it's raining down so hard in Florida. Mm-hmm. And it's the first time I ever slept in a car overnight in a Walmart parking lot. It's kind of fun, actually, to be fair. Yeah, we had to drive from Orlando to Fort Lauderdale just to catch the flight. And I can't even remember off the top of my head. I think it's a 2.5, 4 hour drive, something like that.
From Orlando to Lauderdale?
Yeah, I remember it being pretty
Orlando
long.
to Miami is 4 hours, so it's 35 miles, so 3.5, 4. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah, so that's just kind of like how it went, how we escaped the hurricane. It turned out I messaged the Airbnb host. The Airbnb just got like totaled. Like the bed was right by the only window. I mean, I don't want to say we would have died, but we would not have been in a good position.
Sure.
I think the island of Puerto Rico was out of power in a lot of portions of the island for up to a year. And I mean, I feel like everyone knows about the humanitarian crisis that went on with Puerto Rico after that hurricane got hit. And it was different. It's crazy. We learned our lesson, like be very careful when you plan during hurricane season, and be very careful planning a trip in the Caribbean during hurricane season.
Yeah.
I mean, see if you can get to a place that has, land. Like if you're in Mexico, at least you can drive away from it. But, man, really gave you that sense of claustrophobia being on an island to escape a huge weather event like that.
It's a crazy story. You lived through it, and thanks for sharing about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope, hopefully it entertains or, I don't know, help prepare someone going to a trip.
Is the moral of this, don't travel to Puerto Rico in the fall?
No, definitely not. Go to Puerto Rico. I don't think they've been hit by a hurricane since, but again, don't use my logic on that one.
It's so crazy. We'll have people go to the Caribbean in like September, October, November.
Yeah.
When hurricane season is at its peak.
Right.
And they won't have a day of rain. So explain that.
It's really hit or miss. I mean, you're really just playing with fate on it. I think that year was particularly bad for the Caribbean as a whole.
Yeah.
It was like every island got hit by a hurricane.
Yeah.
And, I mean, you're just playing with fate. I mean, it's all risk.
Now there are some tricks, like if you want to travel in October or November or something like that.
Yeah.
When the hurricane season's really bad, you can go to like the most southern part of the Caribbean, which would be like Aruba or St. Lucia.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
those hurricanes from both directions kind of go over top of it, and you miss a lot of it, which is really nice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I don't tend to go down there during hurricane season anymore, but that's mostly because it's so hot at the time, and I'm just like, I don't want it to be that hot. But
it's one of the few times that our weather here in Ohio is pretty good.
Exactly. But
well, thanks so much for listening to our mini episode of the Travel Agents.
Yep, that's the end of our show. Thanks.
We're the travel agents, that's the end of our show. Make sure to comment and subscribe.